So Putin is rattled as Zelensky let this slip. I stand by my thumbnail. I stand by my title. You'll see exactly what I mean in just a moment. Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. It is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, and this is the Daily Brief. So we know that the May 9th parade is coming up, and Putin was trying to make sure that he had a little security guarantee, and Zelensky just let this slip. He said, now he's speaking in Ukrainian, so I'm just going to read the subtitles. They must make clear steps to the end of the war, and we must insist that an unconditional and full ceasefire must become the first step. And then he says this. Right now, they're worried about whether they can hold their military parade, and rightly so. That's ominous. Well, here's the British intelligence update on April 28th, 2025. Russia's President Putin unilaterally announced a full ceasefire in the Ukraine war to cover the full 72-hour period of 8, 9, and 10 May. This coincides with Victory Day on 9 May, Russia's commemoration of victory of the Great Patriotic War. Second World War for the rest of us. Ukraine's President Zelensky called for an immediate, full, and unconditional ceasefire lasting at least 30 days in response. Okay, well, what's going on here? Putin also likely seeks to reduce the potential for Ukrainian strikes to affect Victory Day parade commemorations. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of 2022, Victory Day parades have been canceled in multiple Russian cities, primarily those regions that border Ukraine. Now, Ukrainian drone technology has gotten so much better. You'll see evidence of that in this video now. Has gotten so much better that it can go so much farther, so much faster. It's the abilities that they have year over year is just amazing. Now, let's look at this. Arthur Rehi saying Putin's declaration of ceasefire during the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow is nothing but another manipulation. He's simply afraid of Ukrainian drones that could ruin the parade and steal the show. Wouldn't that be amazing if that happened? Gary Kasparov replied, Putin wants Ukraine to stop firing so he can host fellow dictators and sycophants at his pathetic parade. It should be made clear that a display of weapons being used to murder Ukrainians is a valid military target. That's right. Everybody knows it, including Putin. See how much Putin's guests really love him. So who's going to actually show up and be right there where the target is? Now, Che Baos is saying, Che Baos, he talks for RT. He's has been a regular guest there, preparing for May 9th. I thought Russians were running out of tanks and missiles and not a microwave or dishwasher in sight. Okay, you wouldn't even have to say a microwave or dishwasher in sight if the Russians didn't steal microwaves and dishwashers, but they do. Like, it wouldn't make sense to say that about the American army, right? Okay, so that's part number one. They're running out of tanks? Yeah, they had to borrow the tanks. We'll get to that in just a moment. Here's military rehearsals for May 9th parade are underway in Moscow and other Russian cities. Columns of military vehicles and drones are being moved. These are legitimate targets for Ukrainian long-range capabilities. They're legitimate targets. We'll see how this all plays out. Even Ben Shapiro is talking about this kind of thing. May 9th, the Soviet victory in World War II is a major holiday in Russia, but they don't celebrate the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which led to World War II in the first place. It's a good point. Okay. Now, Chris Owicki is talking about this. The Russian government has reportedly this is how nervous Putin is. The Russian government has reportedly ordered hundreds of public sector employees in Moscow to give up their days off and watch the skies over the capital for Ukrainian drones during the 9 May Victory Day commemoration. Now, if you think that they can't actually hit Moscow with drones, they've been able to do it before. Remember this? Remember this picture, this image? Like when this first happened, this was like much earlier on in the war. I didn't even believe that the Ukrainians could do it. The Ukrainians did, apparently. And I mean, there was a discussion about, is it false flag? I mean, because the Ukrainians, they don't have the capabilities. They have the capabilities at this point. All reports, now this is just commentary. Okay, so just take commentary for what it is, but all reports indicates that drones are heading north, possibly to Moscow or the Moscow region. There are a lot of Russian military equipment for the World War II victory parade without anti-drone screens in Moscow. Zelensky has just said that the parade is a legitimate target. That last line I just said, but the part before that, I don't know whether that's, there's something to that or not. Okay, so if I were Putin, I'd be very nervous myself. Okay, here is this is where we normally start. And by the way, if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. I do these every day. I do a daily brief in the morning and then 3 big stories in the evening and sometimes something in between. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. 1,100 Russians off the battlefield, 1 tank, 1 armored fighting vehicle, 11 artillery systems, 179 vehicles and fuel tanks. So these numbers are really low. And the 1,100 number, I mean, it's pretty low. It's pretty consistent with the last half of the month being very low. And that leaves us with 1,209 as an running average for the month of April. When we look at Ragnar's dashboard, we look at this. Engagements stay above average and casualties go slightly up over the last days. But again, we're just coming off that low over Easter. Second fewest strikes this week, single digit strike ratio. Yeah. So when we're looking at the dashboard, here's the strike ratio. A couple days ago, it was 30 something to 1. And then I showed you it was 19 to 1. Now it's 8.5 to 1. So it's going the right direction. So when the minus 38% in green, that's positive for Ukraine. If you see these minuses on MLRS strikes or air strikes and a minus and it's turned green, this is good for Ukraine. If it's red, it's negative for Ukraine. Okay. Overnight, let's get into some of these strikes because the Shahid drones were out in force. Overnight, Russians attacked Kharkiv and Dnipro with drones. In Kharkiv, dozens of private houses, 3 apartment buildings were damaged. At least 16 drones struck the city. Around 50 people were injured, including 2 children and a pregnant woman. Most of the destruction affected private residential areas because that's what the Russians do. They attack civilians at night while they're sleeping in their homes. Kharkiv, Dnipro, Dobrophilia, and other Ukrainian cities and communities. Over 100 Russian attack drones overnight, 375 attack drones since the beginning of the week. So 100 last night, 375 in a week. More than 190 of them were Shahids. In Kharkiv, as a result of the 2 waves of strikes, more than 45 people were injured, including 2 children, the youngest victim just 5 years old. In Dnipro, tragically, 1 person was killed. My condolences to the family, and another person was injured. So that's what the Russians have been doing to the Ukrainians. Here's some footage of an Iranian drone hunting civilians last night in Kharkiv. This guy's just driving down the street, and he's like seeing this off in the distance, and he's gonna get out of there quickly. This is now happening in several Ukrainian cities every night, apartment buildings, cars, shopping centers, you name it. Drones reportedly, this is Ukrainian drones now, Ukraine striking back, reportedly targeted Murman instrument making plant, which among other things manufactures gunpowder. You can see this off in the distance, the image of the strike. Overnight, they struck Murman in Vladimir Oblast, which was hit with a blast rocking a plant known for producing this gunpowder. Same thing, the strike caused fires in the entrance in the finished products warehouse. The plant produces explosives. It's also under EU sanctions. So if the sanctions didn't work, the Ukrainian drones have. Ukrainian strike in Rilsk, Kursk region. This here is Russian media reported drone strikes near Rilsk, Kursk region last evening. Several explosions heard east of the city, possibly targeting Russian infantry hideout or a strategic site. The Ukrainians spend their time or their munitions going after things that are going to come kill them, where the Russians go and just target civilians in the evening. Military warehouse on fire in Komarsky district of Zabarkalarski Krai. I don't know if I'm slaughtering that name or what. Over 5,000 kilometers from Ukraine. This is a fuel and lubricants, among others, among other products are produced there. This plane that's coming over here is dropping water on what's smoking over here in the distance. So That's what you're seeing here. Okay, now battlefield, just very briefly, because we're short on time. Per cross direction, Russian invaders led 51 assaults. That's reasonably high for only 1,100 Russian casualties. And then what's happened in Kursk, all tallied, is about 600 DPKR soldiers have died in fighting. More than 15,000 DPKR soldiers were there, and about 4,700 of them were injured. Casualties were fairly high for the North Koreans fighting on Russia's behalf. Okay, deepest condolences to Victoria's family. There are some stories that really affect you, and this is one of them. Like when the dam was blown, and I was thinking about all the families that were in harm's way after that, like a year and a half ago, the dam was blown. I was thinking, wow, like that really kind of gripped me. Well, this one did too. The body of a Ukrainian journalist, Victoria Roshchinkina, killed by Russia, returned to Ukraine, missing her brain, her eyes, her larynx. Like, what kind of crazy things were the Russians doing to her? Guardian investigation also reported electric shock burns on her feet, a broken hip, injuries consistent with strangulations. This is what Russia is and what Russia does to Ukrainians. Yeah, I'd like to say, like, well, just live and let live, or, they're both the problem. Can't say that. You see nothing of Ukrainians doing anything like that to Russians. Okay, here's an image of a fighter pilot shooting down a Shahed. There goes his missile, and he's going to hit a Shahed drone. That's what was coming toward him, and there it is no more. That was a pretty cool image. Train so fatigue doesn't exist, only the mission. It's like a sweat and practice so you don't bleed, right? Okay, now I'm going to leave you with this last image. May 9th parade is coming up. What's going to happen on May 9th? I'm curious about what you think. Put it in the comments below. Thank you for your time. Last thing by Darth Putin, the parody site, Ukraine says, we propose a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Russia says, well, we have many conditions and only want a 3-day ceasefire. Trolls, it's clear Ukraine wants to keep the war going. Yeah, I mean, that's what you keep hearing. Isn't it fascinating? One of the things that was on the cutting room floor was Douglas McGregor saying exactly that. It's Ukraine that's prolonging this war. No, it's not. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.